Year at Review. See my one-on-one interview with President Donald Trump.
But they don't want the churches open. They don't want the schools open. They don't want offices open.
And return to the campaign trail.
Is it your first Trump rally?
No, sir, it's my 10th.
10?
Yes.
Plus, nationwide protests. How Catholics join the call for racial reconciliation. And later, see one woman's remarkable story of faith, how it inspired her 6-decade career as a medical doctor helping others. On EWTN News Nightly for Wednesday, December 30th, 2020. Good evening and thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Tracy Sabol. Tonight we present our Year in Review special. We already talked about the coronavirus pandemic on Monday and showed you our Faith and Politics report on Tuesday. And now we want to bring you some of the biggest stories of the year and share with you some of our favorite stories along the way. First, I want to share part 1 of my one-on-one interview with President Donald Trump. I met the commander-in-chief in the West Wing of the White House in August, in the midst of the pandemic and presidential election. And one of the things we discussed was the reopening of schools and churches. A lot of things shut down, including churches. Let's talk about that and the importance of reopening churches. I know you've talked about that.
I think they should open the churches. It's up to the governors, but I think, and I'm recommending it, you open the churches. They'll spread, they'll be socially spread, they'll have masks, and they'll do what they have to do, you know, the hygiene and everything else that we know. It's a very simple list. But I think it's very unfair that they have, I saw Jim Jordan the other day talking about it very well, that they have 50,000 people protesting, and they're standing on top of each other practically, and yet you're not allowed to go to church, you don't go to schools. We want to open our churches, we want to open our schools, and everybody wants to be safe. They know what to do. They'll stay away, and you know, won't be the same way. Maybe you'll have an extra service or 2 or 3, but they have to let the churches open. They want to put, I'm tell you, the Democrats want to put them out of business. They want to put the churches out of business, and it's very unfair. So they don't complain about the protests, which are horrible in many cases. You look at Portland, it's a disaster, but they don't want the churches open, they don't want the schools open, they don't want offices open. So it's a very unfair situation to a lot of people.
And Mr. President, on top of mind for a lot of parents, including myself, the reopening of schools. I know you just tweeted about that. Can you talk about that?
No, I want the schools open. First of all, children are unbelievably strong, right? Their immune system, something's going on, because out of thousands of deaths in New Jersey, thousands, because I just saw the statistics, many thousands of people died. One person under the age of 18, and that was a person I believe had diabetes on top of everything. So children just are, I guess I heard one doctor say virtually they're immune from it. They have a very strong something, and they are not affected. And we have to open our schools. You know, there's a big danger to keeping people locked in. And they're also finding it's wonderful to use computers, but it's not a great way of learning. They now know that it's much better to be with a teacher on campus or in a school. That's much better than looking at a computer all day long. So we have to get our schools open. We have to get them open soon.
In January, President Trump became the first sitting president to attend the annual March for Life rally. The same day, Vice President Mike Pence was overseas visiting Pope Francis. After meeting the Holy Father, the vice president spoke exclusively to EWTN Vatican Bureau Chief Alan Holdren.
Mr. Vice President, you spent about an hour with the Holy Father, Pope Francis, today. What did you discuss?
Well, it was a great privilege for me to spend time with Pope Francis, and to be able to do so on a day that literally hundreds of thousands of Americans, including many Catholic Americans, are gathered on our National Mall in Washington, D.C., standing up for the right to life, was a particular joy for me. And to hear his passion for the sanctity of life, to hear that American bishops were coming to him this month and speaking about their determination to see the Church in the United States continue as it's always done, to stand without apology for the sanctity of human life, was a great privilege.
And how can the U.S. government work together with the Holy See and the entire world, really, to promote this sanctity of life and work against abortion and also euthanasia?
Well, I believe that the Church in the United States has been a bulwark of the right to life movement since Roe versus Wade was first adopted by our Supreme Court in 1973. In fact, on the National Mall today, among those hundreds of thousands of young people will be an enormous number of Catholic youth. They'll be waving the banners of their parishes. They'll be waving the banners of their Catholic schools. And I think continuing to educate young people about the unalienable right to life and the fact that every child is a gift from God has been the contribution the Church has made to this cause. And the truth is that in the United States, we see more young people every day embracing the right to life. The numbers are growing. I know the Church is playing a critical role in that. And I know we'll continue to until we reach that day that we restore the sanctity of life to the center of American law. And we'll carry that message throughout the world.
Now, President Trump has been called the most pro-life president in history. That record was attractive to voters in North Carolina who waited for hours in line to attend one of his rallies. White House correspondent Owen Jensen brought us this report from the campaign trail in Charlotte, North Carolina.
Tracy, good evening. We're here at Bojangles Coliseum in North Carolina, where tonight President Trump is rallying his supporters. Now, earlier I stood in line with many of them who told me they have one main reason. They want the president to stay in the Oval Office. Another Trump rally, this time in Charlotte. The lines long, the mood energetic. For some, this isn't their first rodeo. How many is this for you?
This is number 67.
And what is it like to be first in front of all of these people? Just ask Sharon Anderson.
Oh, it's always fun. Whether you're number 1 or number 5,000 or 80,000, it's always fun.
Is this your first Trump rally?
No, sir, it's my 10th.
10?
Yes.
The Trump supporters love the crowds, they love the energy, they love the camaraderie. But for some, there's one big issue that really makes them support Trump.
And it says a lot about somebody. He's one of the only presidents that has been pro-life.
And I think abortion is a euphemism for murder.
In fact, several Trump supporters we spoke with told us Trump's pro-life support is very important to them.
It's very important. I think every life is important, and I think children in the womb don't get to make that decision, and it should not be made for them.
Yes, that is one of my number one things, I think. I think that abortion is a sin, honestly.
And Ronald Solomon, busy today selling his Trump stuff, supports Trump's pro-life stance as well.
Trump is an incredible leader. He has a way of connecting with people. He's like a man of the people. He speaks their language, and he's doing great things for our country. For Trump, no doubt his pro-life position will translate into votes come November.
He supports, being more pro-life. Most of abortions are black babies.
It's up to God.
Yeah.
He decides. We wouldn't be here if it weren't for the sanctity of life.
Now, we did not have to look long or hard to find Trump supporters who are also pro-lifers, many from different faith backgrounds, all believing that children in the womb need to be protected. Tracy?
And that was White House correspondent Owen Jensen reporting for us from Charlotte, North Carolina, back in March. Another big story this year, George Floyd's death at the hands of police led to cries of racial injustice and widespread protests. Some cities responded by removing old signs of slavery, including Confederate statues and monuments. But violent protesters took matters into their own hands, targeting Catholic symbols as well. Capitol Hill correspondent Eric Rosales reports.
Tracy, I'm standing here in Statuary Hall, inside the U.S. Capitol, where states determine which public figures they want honored, one of which is Saint Junipero Serra, who is known as the Apostle of California, for helping to bring the Catholic faith there. Cheers from protesters Friday as they toppled a statue of Saint Junipero Serra in San Francisco's Golden Gate Park. The Archbishop of San Francisco asking, what is happening to our society? He explains who Saint Serra was. Quote, Saint Serra made heroic sacrifices to protect the indigenous people of California from their Spanish conquerors, especially the soldiers. He walked all the way to Mexico City in order to discipline the military who were abusing the Indians, and then walked back to California. The Spanish embassy to the U.S. tweeted on Serra, a native of Spain, quote, we deeply regret the destruction of the statue of Saint Junipero Serra in San Francisco. Congresswoman Debbie Lesko of Arizona says tearing down the statue isn't right.
I think it divides us more than it solves any type of problems. And certainly tearing down a statue, a Catholic statue of someone that brought Christianity, why would they do that?
And she questions the motive behind it.
So I kind of wonder if these people that are doing criminal acts, tearing down statues, defacing statues, even know anything about history, or if they're just a big mob that's gone crazy.
In September 2015, Pope Francis canonized Junipero Serra at a mass in Washington, D.C., the first saint to be canonized on U.S. soil. The next day, after an address to Congress, the Pope visited Statuary Hall in the Capitol to pay respects before the saint's statue. In 2015, standing alongside Pope Francis were prominent U.S. lawmakers, including the House Minority Leader at the time, current House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, and Vice President Joe Biden.
And that was Capitol Hill correspondent Eric Rosales reporting. Our coverage continues with correspondent Mark Irons. He shows us Catholics who joined peaceful protest to demand an end to racial injustice.
From New York to the UK, protesters came together in cities across the globe this weekend. In Bristol, England, protesters toppled the statue of a 17th century merchant and slave trader. After some rioting earlier in the week, demonstrations overwhelmingly peaceful in the U.S., including in the nation's capital.
We needed to be able to show and force what it means to bring people together instead of posing to divide us. And more importantly, it's for my kids and their future.
Holy Mary, Mother of God.
And prayer was also lifted up.
We offer this time of prayer.
Monsignor Charles Pope led a rosary walk with religious and lay Catholics in Washington, D.C. He says it was not focused on politics, but asking for reparation and healing from the sin of racism.
It's gone on a long time, and it's something that we have to think about and repent of in our own life. And we also have to accept the fact that sometimes we're victims of it, sometimes we're perpetrators, but we all need to pray and make reparation because it's a community problem.
One Catholic school principal from Virginia said she has even seen racism among her students.
Racist remarks that students do make, and where does that come from? So many times they've said they've heard it on YouTube or they've heard another adult. I think education, but education at home in school is the way for us to change this.
Today in D.C., people of faith continuing to add their voice in peaceful protest. Among this peaceful crowd today, religious sisters and brothers praying for the repose of the soul of George Floyd, calling for justice and peace in the nation. The protest organizer, Josephite priest Father Cornelius Agiagu, led the crowd marching from the White House to the African American Museum.
To ask God for reconciliation in these United States. We're broken by racism and division and discrimination, so we're praying for God's healing.
In Washington, Mark Irons, EWTN News Nightly.
Coming up, pro-life justice.
So help me God.
Amy Coney Barrett takes her seat on the Supreme Court. And papal surprise. His Eminence Wilton Gregory tells me how he found out he was being named a cardinal. Welcome back to our Year in Review special. I'm Tracy Sabol. After a confirmation fight, Amy Coney Barrett took her seat as the newest Associate Justice of the U.S. Supreme Court. The 48-year-old Catholic is the youngest justice since Clarence Thomas joined the court in 1991 when he was just 43. Capitol Hill correspondent Eric Rosales reports.
So help me God.
So help me God.
A night of celebration at the White House. Justice Clarence Thomas administered the constitutional oath to Amy Coney Barrett, the 103rd Associate Justice of the U.S. Supreme Court, her hand on a family Bible held by her husband, Jesse. Behind closed doors today, a private ceremony led by Chief Justice John Roberts, as the newest justice took the judicial oath, paving the way for her to immediately begin her work on the court. She is President Trump's third Supreme Court justice in 4 years, a historic achievement he called a president's great honor and solemn obligation. He praised Justice Barrett for her judicial philosophy and making sure she will not legislate from the bench.
We ask God to give you wisdom and courage
A stormy Senate confirmation process ended with a 52-48 vote in her favor, even as Democrats continue to voice their opposition.
My colleagues may regret this for a lot longer than they think. Generations yet unborn will suffer the consequences of this nomination.
But one Catholic commentator pointed to the pro-life undertones of Senator Chuck Schumer's words, tweeting, "Who's going to tell him?"
This is the most openly pro-life judicial nominee to the Supreme Court in my lifetime.
Justice Barrett was also championed on the Senate floor.
I am delighted to support her nomination. I am delighted to have someone of her convictions. I am delighted to have someone who has taken the stances that she has taken as a legal practitioner, as an academic, and as a judge. And yes, that includes her position on life, and yes, that includes her position on Roe.
And that was Eric Rosales reporting. Also this year, Pope Francis named Washington Archbishop Wilton Gregory a cardinal. The historic appointment made him the first African-American to be elevated to the College of Cardinals. He shared his surprise with me. Joining me now on Skype is Cardinal Designate Wilton Gregory. Your Excellency, welcome back. So good to see you, and thank you for your time. First off, congratulations. Is this something that you were expecting, and what was your reaction to becoming a member of the college?
Well, first of all, Tracy, thank you very much for your kind greeting. No, I wasn't expecting, and I didn't have any advance notice. As you may know, the Holy Father, in his approach to naming cardinals, follows a pattern where he spontaneously announces his intention to hold a consistory and then lists the names of those men that he will name to the College of Cardinals. So there was no advance notice, and I only found out about 5 minutes after the Angelus was concluded on Sunday, because I got a phone call from Cardinal Kevin Farrell, who said he wanted to be the first to wish me best wishes and congratulations on having been named a cardinal.
Up next, the founder of the Knights of Columbus is elevated to the title of Blessed. See Father Michael McGivney's lasting legacy. And faith in God. A doctor shares her amazing family history and mission here on Earth. Welcome back to our Year in Review special. This year we witnessed the church elevate Father Michael McGivney, the founder of the Knights of Columbus, to the title of Blessed. The 19th century parish priest was beatified at a mass in Hartford, Connecticut. Correspondent Mark Irons shows us how Father McGivney's life is still impacting the world today.
Catholics gathered together to celebrate an American life of service. Archbishop William Lori, the Supreme Chaplain of the Knights of Columbus, read the apostolic letter from Pope Francis.
We, by our apostolic authority, decree.
The words describing Father McGivney as an outstanding witness of Christian solidarity and bestowing a new title upon him.
Henceforth, be given the title of Blessed.
And with those words of beatification, a parish priest who served right here in Connecticut is now presented to the global Catholic Church as Blessed Michael McGivney. It means the 19th century cleric is one step closer to receiving the title of saint, if another miracle is verified through the intercession of Blessed McGivney. A relic of the new Blessed presented during a hymn of thanksgiving by Mikey Shackle. The 5-year-old boy was healed from a fatal condition inside his mother's womb after the family prayed for the intercession of Father McGivney. Genevieve Shackle calls her little brother a miracle.
The love for God in my heart grew so much just by loving him and seeing him as perfect.
Today, the legacy of Father McGivney lives on through the Knights of Columbus and its global charitable work for the vulnerable and poor. Supreme Knight Carl Anderson says God used the simple life of a parish priest.
Who would have thought 100 years ago that this Mike McGivney from Waterbury, Connecticut would someday change the church in the United States and throughout the world?
The celebration in Connecticut continued throughout the weekend and spilled out into the streets in New Haven, where Blessed Michael McGivney's ministry began at St. Mary's Church.
Part of the charism of Father McGivney was that he just drew people to himself.
And in this prayerful procession, little Mikey Shackle and his family gathered with other faithful, praising the life of a holy man who helps light the way to Christ. Mark Irons, EWTN News Nightly.
And finally tonight, correspondent Colm Flynn brings us the story of Dr. Melissa Freeman. She has been a doctor for more than 6 decades and tells Colm about her deep faith and family history.
Dr. Melissa Freeman is taking the subway over 150 blocks to Harlem, where she has her small private practice. Throughout the afternoon, she sees dozens of patients, sometimes working until midnight, making sure that every patient gets the time and attention they deserve. And even at her age, she's showing no signs of slowing down. I know it's very rude, Melissa, to ask a lady her age, but do you mind me asking what age you are?
No, I don't mind in the least. You want me to tell you, or you're going to tell me?
I want you to tell me.
I am 93 years of age.
And this year is celebrating 65 years as a practicing doctor. But what's even more remarkable is her family's history. Her grandfather, Albert, grew up as a slave in Virginia, and he was a teenager when the Emancipation Proclamation was signed.
He was an enslaved man in Virginia. He was taken away from his mother when he was a small boy.
What do you remember of your grandfather, of the man he was, of his character?
He was a quiet man. He would get up early in the morning. He would go out. He would sweep the property, the dirt away from the property. And he loved flowers. In the summer, he would plant roses. And we'd run out and say, "Good morning, Papa." And he'd say, "Good morning." And we'd run on out and go to school.
What do you think today, Melissa, when you think back about what happened to your grandfather? Does it make you angry?
Very much so. I feel hurt that it happened. I feel angry that it happened. I feel that people who were left in this situation, it was a terrible area in this country, the life of this country.
After her grandfather passed away, Melissa followed her dream of being a doctor and graduated from Howard University School of Medicine in Washington, D.C. in 1955. So 65 years as a practicing doctor here in New York City. What is it still today that you love about the job?
Well, I just love helping people as they come in with whatever issues they may have, seeing people survive serious ailments, to see people with malignancies now able to survive.
Now they have a chance.
They have a chance to survive. It's something that I want to continue to do. I'm not ready to give it up. 93 years, I'm not ready to leave. It's what God put me here to do.
Do you believe that God put you here to do this job?
There's no other way that I could have done it. My faith in God, has been with me through all of my life. Oh, I'm so glad you came.
We love you. We love you so much.
I know, and I love you. You know that.
In New York City for EWTN News Nightly, I'm Colm Flynn.
Remarkable story. And we thank you for watching our Year in Review special. For the entire EWTN News Nightly team, I'm Tracy Sabol. Good night and God bless.